Hey everybody, welcome to Fantasy R&R. This is your host Ryan.
And I'm Rob.
And this is our Week 8 preview.
This is Fantasy with Rob and Ryan, Fantasy R&R.
Let's get things kicked off with Thursday Night Football's matchup.
Packers at Cardinals.
I'm going to go with Allen Lazard here. I think this is one of those games with Davante Adams on the COVID list and Scantling questionable to return this week with his injury. We're going to see Allen Lazard be a top target for Aaron Rodgers once again. The past 2 weeks, he's posted 8 receptions for 87 yards and 2 touchdowns. 1 touchdown in each of the last 2 games. Allen Lazard, who's been difficult to trust in most formats over the last couple years, I think he's going to be your big fantasy play for this week.
Yeah, but I'm going James Conner here with the Cardinals flying high so far this season. He is getting all the touches at the goal line. Chase Edmonds out-touched him last week, but James Conner's the one getting the touchdowns. Play James Conner this week. I believe the streak continues.
Panthers at Falcons.
For this game, I'm going to say Chuba Hubbard. I know up against the Giants, he was kind of underwhelming with 12 attempts for 28 yards. Did a little bit of receiving work, though. 4 receptions, 5 targets, 28 yards, and Sam Darnold is struggling. In fact, Sam Darnold's been struggling for the last 4 games really hard ever since McCaffrey has been gone and put on the IR. We don't know if that trend's going to continue, and we don't know if that fucking liar Matt Rule is actually going to let Sam Darnold play this week, but I will say that Chuba Hubbard is going to be your guy. He will be able to run rampant this time around as we're seeing him go up against a terrible Falcons defense that is ranked last in the league in some formats. Play him with confidence in your RB2 or flex positions.
Yeah, I'm going with a flex play here in this one. Russell Gage jumped on the scene last week for the Falcons. It looks as if he could be the third target in an offense that has been subpar. Looks like they're kind of gaining some traction. I do not like this Panthers defense whatsoever, and Russell Gage, I believe, could duplicate what he did just last week.
Dolphins at Bills.
For this game, I'm going to say the Bills this week up against the Titans. You call them a game of the week. It was absolutely exciting, but that was an anomaly. It was the only time they put up 0 points on the season, and of course, they had King Derrick Henry to contend with, and there was a little bit of controversy at the end with the 4th and 1 call. I would have just kicked the field goal there as someone who's more conservative, taken the tie and gone on, but nevertheless, the Bills have put up 20 points against Miami the last time they played them, then 10 points against Washington, 22 against Houston, 16 against Kansas City Chiefs with Mahomes. So going up after this bye against the Miami Dolphins, I think the Bills are in for another big game where Tua is prone to turnovers. The Bills right now are ranked number 2 on the season behind the Cardinals, and that's only because they've done the bye week. 2 shutouts on the season. You can definitely trust the Bills defense to be a major fantasy asset for you.
Yeah, this Dolphins play pretty much anywhere. I'm pretty trying to stay as far away from as possible. What is going on with Myles Gaskin? Had a nice week last week. I do not believe it is going to happen again after Ryan, you and I were talking about this. I would like to know what's going on with Gaskin. Will he be the RB1 for the Dolphins, especially with Malcolm Brown out this week? But I wouldn't risk it. So I'm almost doing a reverse thing here. I would not play Myles Gaskin this week against that Bills defense.
49ers at Bears.
Rob, I don't blame you on that last call, and don't worry about it. This isn't just for us to call the only fantasy player that you want to have on your radar. Sometimes it has nothing to do with who you actually should play. Case in point here, 49ers Bears. The winner here is anyone in Chicago that doesn't have cable TV to watch this fucking shit show of a matchup.
And I second that. Moving on.
Steelers at Browns.
I'm going to go with Chase Claypool here. With Juju Smith out for the year, I'm going to say that Deontay Johnson has to take a little bit of a backseat against the Browns here, as they're going to have him heavily covered. Chase Claypool, who hasn't done a whole ton even with his own injuries on the season, I think this is the time you're going to see him post more of a line like 581. Steelers don't have a whole lot of options right now besides Najee Harris. We have yet to see Freiermuth get involved more and more in the passing game, so Chase Claypool is going to be a main target in this matchup.
I'm very interested to see how Donovan Peoples-Jones will be utilized in this game. I think he's kind of a dark horse. Not saying I'd start him or flex him for that matter, but I think it's definitely somebody to keep a close eye on. With OBJ out, DPJ could see a lot more targets even without Baker Mayfield starting in this game.
Eagles at Lions.
This for me is the week where Dallas Goedert gets closer and closer to the top 10 status of tight ends in fantasy that we know he can be. Yes, he missed a game because of COVID against Tampa Bay, so that actually skews his numbers a bit. Week 1, 12 points. Week 4, 14 points. Week 7, over 10 points. Jalen Hurts, obviously struggling as an NFL quarterback, but for fantasy purposes, he's keeping the ball spread around on the Eagles offense, giving everybody a chance to post 7 to 10 points each game. I think Goddard is going to be one of the bigger assets in this matchup, and you should trust him in your tight end or flex positions against a horrible Detroit Lions defense.
Yeah, the guy I'm going with here is Kenneth Gainwell. Anytime you can get what potentially could be a cowbell back, Kenneth Gainwell looks like he will amount to touches here with Philly. Even though they don't really run, anything can potentially happen. Case in point, D'Ernest Johnson for the Browns last week. Kenneth Gainwell could do this with, again, a very, very bad Lions defense.
Rams at Texans.
My pick for this one is going to be Darrell Henderson Jr., and it's really because we've seen him be a pretty consistent running back out of nowhere this year. Was a highly touted rookie back in 2018, got stashed on a lot of teams, really has done nothing, especially when, Todd Gurley was there, and we talking about Cam Akers being the guy they were going to roll with until his Achilles injury. Now Darrell Henderson Jr. has taken over this backfield. However, against Detroit, which is a bad defense, he had his worst outing of his year, 15 for 45, and I believe he only had a couple of receptions for about 19 yards. I think going up against Houston is another soft matchup for him where he can get back into his rhythm, gain his confidence back, and you'll see a 20-point performance from what should be your RB1 or 2.
Yeah, I'm going Tyler Higby here, and the only reason is he's a tight end with a pulse, and the Texans defense is horrible, so I would not be shocked to see the ball spread around equally with Matt Stafford, and I believe Higby could be one of these guys that gets a sneaky one or maybe even 2 touchdowns in this game.
Titans at Colts.
I'm going to say Mo Alley Cox. Wentz doesn't get the ball out a whole lot, and Jonathan Taylor's running wild lately. So there's not a whole lot of targets to go around. Obviously, Pittman Jr. is going to be the main wide receiver on Indianapolis, but Mo Alley Cox is holding his own as a top 15 tight end in most standard scoring formats right now. 3 targets in every game since week 4, and he has 2 touchdowns, 1 in each of the last 2 weeks to boot. Mo Alley Cox is probably going to be a more trusted target for Wentz going forward, especially in a stingy Tennessee defense right now, where he's going to have to look to the quick pass down the field.
Yeah, I'm kind of cheating a little bit. A.J. Brown had his breakout week last week. I believe he will continue to roll against the Colts defense, which has been pretty good this season, but I believe A.J. Brown's dominance continues next week. Had a nice game against the Chiefs, and I believe he can make this happen yet again against Indianapolis.
Bengals at Jets.
This is just kind of a calling all cards statement. The Bengals wide receivers are the new top wide receiving core in the NFL. I'm talking over the Buccaneers, over the Bills, over the Vikings, over anybody. These guys are the people who are going to set the bar from now on. Jamar Chase is having an absolutely crazy rookie season. He should be Rookie of the Year. He's on pace for 1,800 yards and coming off a 200-yard receiving game in his rookie season. And then on top of it, we've got T. Higgins, who's continuing a great campaign from his rookie year last year, and then Tyler Boyd, who's going to be the serviceable veteran. Now, we're also going to be talking about somebody next when Rob takes over. These are the guys you have to put into your lineup every single week. If you've got 2 of them on your team, play one in wide receiver 1, flex the other.
Yeah, I'm looking at CJ Uzoma. We were talking about him a couple weeks ago when he exploded on the scene against the Jaguars defense, and he just continues to catch touchdowns. And for a tight end, you can't ask for much more than that. And the way Burrow's slinging the ball, you got to make sure you have some sort of receiving corps on your starting lineup. Whether you're starting them or flexing them, I think CJ Uzoma, and again, any Bengals wide receiver at this point is worth rostering going forward.
Patriots at Chargers.
I'm going to call Keenan Allen's first 20-point-plus game of the fantasy season. He hasn't been quite what we expected, but he hasn't been a total disappointment either. The first couple weeks, posts 100 yards over. He's getting double-digit targets almost all the time. The last matchup against Baltimore, a little underwhelming with 5 targets, but he caught all of them for 50 yards. And obviously, Mike Williams, he's a little bitch. Everyone thought they got good value with that guy, but now he's coming back down to earth like the little fucker he is. I think he deserves it, and Keenan Allen, you're the one that deserves the touchdowns from now on. I want to see it. Justin Herbert to Keenan Allen, big blow-up performance against the Patriots, who are middle of the pack against fantasy wide receivers.
Yeah, I'm going Hunter Henry here. I know it's been kind of a frustrating situation with the Patriots with their tight ends, but he does have 4 touchdowns the last 4 games, only 2 receptions, but just last week. But the Chargers, as you've pointed out here, Ryan, is it second most scored on by tight ends. So again, the Chargers are the second team that has been scored most on by tight ends. So if it's not Henry, if Jonnu Smith's sitting out there, I say one of the two. One of these guys are going to score. But I'm going Henry. I'm going 5 games, 5 touchdowns. Let's see it.
Jaguars at Seahawks.
I'm going to say Alex Collins runs rampant on the Jacksonville defense. As much as we are starting to enjoy things on the Jacksonville offense side of the ball, their defense is absolutely abysmal, probably ranks in the worst of the league with the Falcons, Seahawks, anybody else that you could think of right now that's just putting up bad performance after bad performance. The Jaguars are there. So Alex Collins, who had a little bit of a struggle this past Monday night, I think he's going to get back into form, even though Rashad Penny's there to take a couple of carries. Rashad Penny only had about 6 carries for 9 yards, did not look very good, and the word on the street is that Chris Carson is probably not coming back because this is a neck-related injury. So Alex Collins should be your main guy going forward on Seattle, and this is going to be a bell cow situation for him.
Yeah, I'm going Trevor Lawrence in this game. I believe that the Seahawks defense, albeit it can be good, I believe it can also be very bad, especially in the air. Now, for the Jaguars to do this, and I believe they're going to, this is my game of the week. I think the Jaguars are going to win 2 straight games. Oh my gosh, scary, isn't it? Well, it's Halloween time, so enjoy it. I believe T-Law has 3 touchdowns. I believe this is the time that Chenault catches a touchdown, because it can happen. Go Jags.
Washington football team at Broncos.
For this game, we're hearing rumors that Teddy Bridgewater may not be the starter for the Broncos going forward. So much like we talked about earlier, where this doesn't always have to be about the best fantasy player, I'm going to call this one. Drew Lock is returning to the Broncos to suck ass. Vic Fangio does this kind of thing all the time. We're probably in the situation at this point where Drew Lock is just the desperation play. We're not going to see a whole bunch of fantasy points from anybody on that team going forward, besides maybe Cortland Sutton, who the ball is being force-fed to. I'm going to say get rid of Melvin Gordon. I'm there at this point, but again, maybe my counterpart here disagrees.
Well, I'm staying on that side of the ball. I'm looking at Javonte Williams. I think it's only a matter of time as he does jump Melvin Gordon for touches in Denver. And for the Washington football team's defense, it's been gashed up all season long. I believe Chase Young is injured and will not play in this game, which is a huge cog missing in that defense. Javonte Williams, I say get him now before it is too late.
Buccaneers at Saints.
For this one, I'm going to say Taysom Hill, and the reason is being that the Buccaneers are a tough defense to play against, and we're already seeing a lot of New Orleans offense struggle against even the easiest of defenses. Let's just talk about this Monday night, where they had a real hard time against the Seattle offense that's missing Geno Smith, and then a defense that has been historically bad the past couple of years. So their main weapons, besides Alvin Kamara, aren't really getting utilized. And I will say that if the Buccaneers are going to be ready to cover guys like Marquez Callaway all game and then heavily go after Alvin Kamara, then what they're probably going to do is use Taysom Hill as a kind of change of pace quarterback when Jameis Winston has already done his damage with his turnover bakery. And we're going to see him use that kind of a secret weapon in these real sneaky situations. I think Taysom Hill could probably put up about 15 points and get you a TD this week.
I'm kind of selling out here. I'm going a Tampa Bay wide receiver. Oh my gosh. But I'm going Chris Godwin. I'm going with my guy. He started last week to what seems to be create that chemistry again with Tom Brady. Tom Brady's rolling pretty hardcore. I know Evans was the one that got the 3 touchdowns, but I believe Godwin can have that type of game due to this past week's performance. So this week, let's go Chris Godwin.
Cowboys at Vikings.
I'm going to say Kirk Cousins here. This is a great matchup for him, and I usually call him when he's about to do good. Kirk Cousins always flies under the radar. Even right now, he's position ranked 12 of QBs, and that is a misleading statistic because some of these guys are hitting the bye while all the other teams don't have their bye for another couple of weeks. So Kirk Cousins is 1 game behind everyone, but he's averaging 19.8 points a game. He's only 40% rostered in leagues. People do not trust him, but every game that he has not scored under 10 points, he scored over 20. So Kirk Cousins is in a great situation against Dallas defense, which was one of the worst passing defense in the league. I think you're going to get your 350 yards and your 3 TDs out of him.
I'm going Tony Pollard in this one, and I believe it's because they're going to, from a bye week, I think they're going to ease Ezekiel Elliott back in. I think Tony Pollard will get a majority of the touches later on in garbage time. So I do believe Tony Pollard could have one of those 1 to 2 maybe touchdowns on the goal line, simply because it's late in the game and the Cowboys are going to be up big in this one.
Giants at Chiefs.
For this game, I'm going to pick Daniel Jones. And I know that some people have to stream quarterbacks this week, and maybe for last week and the next couple of weeks and foreseeable future. Daniel Jones is going to be a good streaming option. Yeah, he's going up against Kansas City. Well, yeah, we get it. They're a good offense most of the time, except for this last week. But they are, in my opinion, the worst defense in the league this year. They give up the most yards per play. And Daniel Jones, who's averaging about 15 points per game, he's got the potential to put up 3 TDs here. He's got some fumble issues. He's got some interception issues every once in a while. When all is said and done, I think this is going to be his healthiest matchup, especially because you have to realize he's doing a lot of this without any of his weapons. Kadarius Toney injured right now. He's always got Slayton and Sterling Shepard in and out. Evan Ingram is in and out and not really been a thing or a reliable option for him, and Saquon Barkley out. So Daniel Jones is doing this by himself. I think he's in a better position this week with some of his players returning.
Yeah, and I'm going a potential one here with Kadarius Toney. I know I keep talking about this guy, but what we saw a couple weeks ago was pretty mouth-watering, if you will. And if he is healthy, I say go back to Toney. Don't just give up on this guy because he was injured last week. Going forward, I think he could be very, very good, especially towards a playoff run. But if he's not back, it's pretty much any Giants receiver available. They're decimated with injuries this week. And I believe, of course, somebody's got to be thrown the ball to, hence why you're picking Daniel Jones this week.
And Rob, I think you already did your game of the week. I'm going to go back and do mine real quick. I do think it's going to be this Thursday night football matchup between the Packers and Cardinals. It's going to be an absolute barn burner. It's going to be fun to watch Aaron Rodgers versus Kyler Murray. We got the old regime versus the new regime. It's going to be a fun one. That's my pick. And without further ado, we'll end this podcast. That was our Week 8 preview. This is Fantasy R&R with Rob and Ryan. We'll see you next time.